Man, that music does not get old. And at the very last minute, Saved by the Bell. Alan, what's up, man?
Not much. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing pretty well, man. Um, nice shirt, matches the hat. Gotta love
Thanks.
that. So, okay, welcome back to another episode of the Short Show. I don't think I ever got that out. Basically, today we're going to do a little bit of reacting to some stuff that happened in the championship, a little bit of League One, just a little bit, and then some League Two and League W, because there's some big matchups happening in League Two and League W this weekend. But I feel like I need to start off with something I guess kind of hits closer to home to you about that Las Vegas Lights game yesterday. Um, I mean, I just want to get your opinion on the Danny Trejo situation.
Um, yeah, I can see both sides of the argument. I just wish that USL and MLS had figured out some sort of minor league baseball system where like you have to put guys on, a certain number of times you can send them down, but it was wild because some of the folks in San Diego didn't even think he would be able to play, knowing that he played the day before. And I was like, no, he can play as many minutes as he wants. Los Dos, I think, did that as well this past weekend.
Yep.
Into the Open Cup. Brew is upset. I mean,
absolutely furious. I can tell.
I mean, I can see, like I said, I can see both sides of the argument of he's a Las Vegas Lights player who got loaned to LAFC or the opposite away. I don't remember. I don't even know how it works. Essentially, you play who's on the pitch, and Loyal was good enough to pull out a victory even against guys like Trejo and Jennings. They just didn't put the ball in the back of the net. And Vegas, with those two guys, were able to counterattack twice and put enough pressure on the defense to get a victory. And, if you took away the scoreline and just watched the game without the goals, I think you would have been like, oh, San Diego's probably going to win this one. And, but this is the joy of soccer is it both hurts and feels great. And this is one of those ones where you have to talk the fan base down a little bit, where it's like, if this happens 3 or 4 times a season, then you're in the Phoenix realm right now. But, anybody can beat anybody in the West right now, it seems. And so you have to be 100% full 90 on it every week, or else this is what happens, right? Vegas is a borderline playoff team now.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is you kind of talked about with Danny Trejo and Cal Jennings. I've been singing Cal Jennings praises for a long time now. I still stand by he is one of the best strikers in USL. If he admittedly had a better cast of crew around him, I think he'd be putting up ridiculous numbers for them. But this Lions team is not half bad. The Legion played against them, scrapped out a 0-0 draw, mainly just because Romero, their keeper, hey, he is an incredibly nice human. So, hey, dude, if you're watching this, shout out to you. You're incredibly nice guy, but also an incredible goalkeeper. And something that went under the radar, and I wish we would have talked about it on the USL show. His performance against Orange County, the team that released him, was awesome. I mean, you could definitely tell that wanting to go out and get a result because he put in a shift against Orange County, and he did it against Loyal. I mean, Loyal missed their chances, but there has to be something said that they couldn't just put a shot on net because they knew he would save it.
There were out. I mean, there was the penalty he saved, but there were like 2 or 3 more that any other day of the week that's curling into the goal. Like he was just playing out of it. I was like, there's no way. And then he did. I think he got kind of a raw deal in Orange County. Obviously, Rakoski got really hot, and you ride the hot keeper. But he really wanted more minutes, and he was looking for somewhere to go to get more minutes. and and he's really proving that he can play at this level. And congratulations to him. I know that last year was really tough for him. We had a chance to interview him on Orange and Black, and he was just, I think he wanted to go somewhere that they would play him, and he's showing why. And this is one of those, sometimes you got to tip your cap to a goalkeeper who stands on his head and keeps his team from losing. Like, that could have been 3-2 Loyal victory very easily. Very easily.
It should have been a 1 or 2 goal win for Legion as well when they played him, but he had underratedly one of the best saves of the year. That's not going to get a whole lot of love. It was a near post shot that was stopped that I asked him after the match, how'd you save that? And he said, I have no idea. And it was just ridiculous. It was destined for the back of the net. But, kind of speaking about tipping your hat to some people, let's go ahead and transition to our good boy Gio, who's still buzzing from a match out in Omaha. Greenville go out and get a result against a Union Omaha team, which now that I'm and I just kind of want to throw this to you because everybody was talking about it. Union Omaha has played more matches away than at home this year. They barely played at home this year. And if you watch that match back, it looked like all of their players were struggling with the size of the pitch. We saw recently with New York City FC about how small that pitch is. But the players out of Union Omaha and a little bit of Greenville, you could tell they're struggling with the size. But unfortunately for Omaha, weirdly enough, Greenville had more players that had played in that stadium than Omaha did.
Yeah, and it's not like Omaha played like poorly in this one either. It was, they're still managing quite a few shots, just not getting it on frame. They, had a majority of possession, which, possession is what possession is. But it's not like they were necessarily super poor, which, I think it just speaks to the parity of USO League One is Greenville went in and made a statement win. Like, hey, we've been a little bit up and down as of late, but we need to, when it mattered, we went into probably, I don't want to say their biggest rival.
It's definitely their biggest rival.
Yeah, these are the two teams that have been going back and forth for a couple seasons. And for them to go into Omaha and kind of put a stamp on it, I think is a good win for Greenville. And I think it highlights maybe some of the up and down and parity of the league, of League Two or League One, but also maybe some of the teams that have been on a roll don't get to stay on a roll because they just have a bad, not a bad game, but just not a perfect game against a team that is really playing better. And I like to think that me picking Omaha helped Greenville win. So I sent Gio a message. I said, Gio, thanks, or you're welcome for me picking Omaha. Because I said, if Omaha wins, I'm happy. But if I jinx them like I normally would, Gio's happy. And that's always a good thing, especially on Father's Day, right?
Especially on Father's Day. It's kind of funny because watching that match back, I was kind of with you. Like, Omaha looks like they're kind of searching for their footing, but they're not exactly playing poorly. Greenville was just outplaying them. And there was this weird sentiment on USL League One Twitter of Union Omaha fans saying, hey, shout out to Greenville. You guys outplayed us. We played like crap. As a neutral supporter, right, I didn't feel like Omaha played like crap. I thought Greenville just played amazingly. And it's amazing what a great team can do to a really good team sometimes. And I'm not saying that Omaha is a tier below Greenville in any sense, but in that match they were. And sometimes all you need is a team to be very good and another team to be great, and you get a result like that.
Yeah, I've heard Michael Cox say this before. He said, I've heard people say that there are two teams that play poorly. Like, both these teams are playing poorly. And I've seen people analyze games where one team is clearly better than the other. He's like, very rarely do I hear people saying both teams played well, just one team happened to play better. And there are moments in the season, I think, where fans see a 2-0 defeat as being we played poorly. It's just like, no, the other team just played better. Loyal played a great game yesterday. Vegas just played a slightly better game plan based on how Vegas likes to play. And sometimes most of the time you win those, and sometimes you don't. And yesterday was one of those sometimes you don't. And it's frustrating. And as fans, it's really easy to be like, oh, we sucked. Oh, with this. It's like, no, it was a good game. We just didn't score enough. And in soccer, it's really hard to score. So sometimes you just don't. And I think, Omaha fans maybe can hold their head up a little bit and saying, hey, we didn't play poorly. It's just Greenville got the better of us today. And you tip your cap and you turn the page and you play again next time.
So I want to kind of move on just a little bit to another Greenville team who is playing really well. And the Greenville Liberty, my goodness. I mean, early on, I'm pretty sure if I've been keeping up with everything right, they had the most points in the league. They are still undefeated. They are playing in a really good league with NC Courage, who only has the one loss on the season, which I think was their first, and Asheville City team, who's also really good, who they are playing this week. That is a really good South Atlantic division, and Greenville is quickly running away from it. There's other talented teams. Indy 11, our good friend John Morsey has broken down a lot of tactics stuff for Indy 11, and they are incredible. But this Liberty team, they are just phenomenal to watch.
Yeah, there's a couple of divisions there that some teams are running away, but nothing quite as competitive as that South Atlantic. The Mid-Atlantic, it seems like there's one really solid team, and then there's kind of everybody else. Mm-hmm. I think you're right, that Great Lakes division with Indy Racing, that one's been a pretty fun one, and Indy really doing a really good job in that division. There's definitely some that are stronger than others. So it'll be interesting to see when some of these divisions get a chance to play outside of their division, to see just how strong some of these teams are, right? Like some of the teams I think are gonna benefit from having some other strong teams in their division. And some of the teams I think are going to be surprised by the competition when they get out from beating up on some teams that are probably not very good.
And I'm kind of looking down at, you mentioned it, this Great Lakes division. This Indy team is phenomenal. This racing team has a lot of talent, maybe bolstered by having 9 games as opposed to Indy only having 8. It's only 1 game in hand, but it makes it a little bit closer than it seems. Ann Arbor is a great team. Detroit City, we give Detroit City a lot of grief a lot of times, but unironically, this Detroit City women's team is really good. They are just unfortunately in the same division as Racing and Indy. It's so unfortunate they're in the same division, because I think if they were in any other division, they'd be at the top or up there, right there with them. But you look towards the bottom, that you have a Flint City, a Kalamazoo, a Kings Hammer who has 3 points, but all 3 from draws. And this is a Kings Hammer team that is not that bad. They have good players, and you look on the men's side where they are currently sitting in third, technically tied for second, and they're only in third by a goal differential. And you're kind of looking at the women's team like, what's the disparity here? Is there difference in coaching? Because Cincinnati has more than enough quality players. It's not like they can't pull in the players. It's like, what's going on here,
Yeah, I think it's also maybe a little bit of a growing, I don't want to say growing pains, but just a little bit of like, okay, like first year in the league, let's figure out what the competition level's like. And there's probably some players who are, above the level of a W league, that when the Super League starts, those players are going to drift up, and you might get a more competitive W league. And so it's just kind of one of those, people are maybe those NWSL, like we're talking about, like the Danny Trejos, right? These girls who are kind of in between NWSL and maybe a Super League, or should be maybe in that Super League, that are just kind of buying their time in this W League till the Super League launches. So you might see a little bit more balancing out of some talent, and then some other teams are like, oh, this is legit. We gotta pull some players and find some more talent. So I think it's a little bit of year one getting used to where the league actually is and centering where that is as far as talent level is concerned. And then it'll be interesting when Super League starts to see how these two leagues kind of start to filter where the talent is.
So before we move away from the W League, these are the matches of the week that are coming out. Which, hey, spoiler, I think these come out tomorrow though. AFC Ann Arbor versus Racing Louisville. We have Chicago Dutch Lions versus the Minnesota Aurora. We have Chicago City FC versus Call Valley. No law on the call. That's my team. I have picked them up mainly just because I know a girl that plays on the team. We have Greenville Liberty SC versus NC Courage U23. We have, in which the NC Courage have followed me on Twitter, so shout out to you guys. But Liberty hasn't followed me on Twitter. Gio, get your people in order, please. And Tampa Bay United taking on Florida Elite Soccer Academy. So those are going to be the games of the week, and definitely games to keep your eye on. Coming up soon in League Two, I think tomorrow and the next couple of days, we're going to have a real battle for the division between Asheville City and One Knox. They play this week. Asheville City is undefeated with 7 wins and 2 draws on 23 points. And One Knox has 7 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw, meaning that One Knox is only 1 point behind. With this match is going to decide the season. These are 2 really quality teams, and if you're not paying attention to what's happening in Nashville and One Knox right now in Knoxville, Tennessee, they are just building something special in that little region right there.
Yeah, their goal differential is insane. In 9 games, Asheville City is built a plus 18 goal differential, 24 goals scored, 6 goals against. So this will be an interesting one because someone's going to give, right? Good defense versus good offense on both sides. It'll be interesting to see who's for reals there. But that's pretty amazing that you have both of those pretty high up there as far as goal differential, both goals for and goals against, some pretty solid defenses.
For sure. And of course, our normal kit season thing that goes on. If you noticed, Ballard FC just had a restock, and same thing for Vermont. So go get your kits because they will sell out. We've already seen it happen twice for both teams. So go do that. But I do want to talk about 2 situations because on the last short show we talked about Tulsa and Phoenix. The next day, Tulsa sacks their coach. And then a week or less than a couple of days later, the USL Week 1 and Week 2 USL champions, Loudoun United, go into Phoenix and get a 4-3 win, which was a 4-1 win until they started blowing it. But luckily, footy is only a 90-minute game. If that was going to last, 100, we might be looking at a draw. I kind of want to start off with Phoenix, so I feel like that's the more interesting conversation.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I've been trying to caution against pressing the panic button. But the question is if it's Shantz, if it's not Shantz, who are you going to get? And are they going to be better? Is it a system issue? Is it a player issue? Are they just not signing the right people? Phoenix has always kind of been a offensive team that has been decent defensively, but not great defensively. And I think because the offense is sputtering, the defense is being put under more pressure. And so they're just not as successful. Because they can score goals when they can, but they're also leaking in a lot more. So I'm not sure, do you just give it to one of the assistants? But that's just more Rick Shantz, right? Are they going to bring
especially
anyone
when he's there that long?
Yeah,
it's not like he just got here.
Ryan says Sam Allardyce is available. Sean Dyke. This is always a question of who do you get, right? And are they going to be able to affect change, or is it more like, hey, Shantz, give us 3 names of people you want to bring in, and let's go get a couple people, and let's readjust the talent, because that's very feasible too, right? They're not that far out. They're like, oh, we're out of the playoff picture. It's like yeah, I guess like a point with a game in hand. Like, is that really like I get for Phoenix? That's like a big deal, but I mean, is that really that far off that Phoenix needs to worry about not making the playoffs? I mean, the way they're playing right now, sure, but I don't know. It's a tough one. Like, sure, fire your coach and see what happens. But then what happens if the guy you get isn't as good as Shant and it's just more of the same or worse? Um, so I don't know. I have a hard time with mid-season coaching changes. You get that coaching bump sometimes, but other times you get that coaching bump and then it's just more of the same junk for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I the thing that kind of comes to my mind, and this is almost a guarantee across all sports. When you fire your coach, you can almost, I mean, I'm almost beg every single sporting fan, if you have gambling odds and gambling's legal where you live, if your team just fired their coach, or if a team fires their coach, go straight down to the betting odds. That team's going to win their next game. But almost every single time, look down the season, how many times have we seen the coaching change? How many times have we seen the firing and the team really goes on a run? Most of the time it's like, oh, there were 3 games left this season and we went 2-1 and the team looked a lot better. I mean, that doesn't really count, right? To me, because how many times have we seen those interims get hired and they were complete garbage? Um, I don't know. I think that we're going to see out of Phoenix. This is going to be an interesting time for me anyway. I wonder how many League One coaches get poached because we're seeing players getting poached. I mean, Phoenix did it with Greg Hurst, and he came up and has been incredible. But are we going to see some coaches from League One get poached and given a chance to the championship? Because it is a step up, but is it a big enough gap to say coaches would be willing to leave?
I mean, I think it depends on the club, right? If Phoenix comes calling, that's a very attractive job for someone who wants to make the jump up. Um, but I mean, coaches also like if they're in the middle of a project that they want to see through, they're not going to leave, right? Even if they get maybe what seems to be better offers. Um, I think I'm going to make a comparison to band directing jobs. Is you don't leave a job unless it's you're moving parallel or you're moving up. It's a better job, right? You don't take a job that's going to be um, harder or a lower support unless it's like for like personal reasons. But to make the comparison with a soccer coach is you're not going to leave a League One team that's kind of the top of League One. That's a project that you're seeing through in order to take like a bottom USL club, right? There's no promotion, right? So there's no benefit of taking a club in going from League One to championship if it's not going to be a top club. So I think that there's some, I think Phoenix is an attractive position if that job opens. There's going to be people who are interested in taking that job, but maybe not until the off season. I think Tulsa's in a different boat. I think Tulsa is has some question marks about their investment and question marks about who they are as a team. Right? They just did the rebrand. They have some new owners, so it's a little bit of a question mark. But they just hired Sam Dorr, who's a really smart guy, as president. And so, like, is Sam Dorr looking at this Phoenix, going, "Hey, if Shantz is out in Phoenix, maybe I can pick him up and bring him into Tulsa, and we can reconnect and build something here." So I think Tulsa's got an interesting position. I think Phoenix can bring in kind of whoever they want because it's an attractive job that they clearly spend money. But can they get that guy right now, or are they going to have to wait until the end of the season where a guy who's kind of finishing something out that doesn't seem like he's jumping ship?
It's one of those weird situations because if you don't fire your coach immediately, then maybe you lose out on getting an elite coach immediately, right? Where maybe you don't hire them at that moment, but it's like, hey, as soon as your season's done, you're over here. Like we'll announce that you're on your way, and you can finish out your vision there for this year, and you come on over. But on the same hand, firing a coach mid-season, you're essentially conceding the season, which in Phoenix I don't think would fly, to be honest. I mean, not necessarily. I mean, Phoenix, if they were to fire their coach, I think the fans would not concede the season. The definitely the players would not concede the season, but the ownership in some way is admitting defeat somewhere, and I think that could send a bad message down into the locker room.
Yeah, I think the comparison everyone in Phoenix is making right now is the Orange County situation with last year, where uh, Orange County fired the coach. Now Chaplow was a player there; he knew those guys really well, and so he kind of. And I think this is the question for Phoenix: is do you have that type of Chaplow guy that really understands the players and can understand that maybe there is some adjustments to be made, but maybe they're Shantz isn't doing what they think they should be doing. And so maybe there's a guy who can change some system stuff. I think that's the one thing to caution with that firing in the head coach is Chaplow knew those players really, really well, had a slightly different idea of how they should be playing. And as soon as he came in, he changed. Now he's not having nearly as much success now because there are a bunch of new players. He doesn't know them like he knew the guys before. So it's an interesting place for Phoenix to be. Do they trust an assistant coach? Are there guys that have been around long enough that can step up? Or maybe they pull somebody who used to be a player is looking to coach, who knows the guys well. But I don't know. I don't know what the options are in Phoenix right now.
Announce Drogba. I mean, that would be something. I don't know. I think I'm kind of with you here. And we saw with Louisville back in 28, well, several times actually, where they had player coaches. I wonder if that would be the move here. To me, that almost seems like it'd be a decent idea. I mean, in my mind, Louisville has had more success than Phoenix, but I still hold them in similar regards in the type of player that they bring in. I feel like this may be a situation where you could maybe have a player coach and it work out because, like you said, they know the players, they know what get the boys going, and maybe you get the captain on the team or a guy who is like a captain who maybe sits on the bench a little bit, a guy who's injured possibly, who's not going to play, but he knows the system better than anybody because he's a part of the team. This feels like it could be a situation where that could work.
Yeah, and I also think with the difference between Lou City and Phoenix is I think Lou City has been in a position to make some of these decisions before, and Phoenix hasn't. Right? These owners have only had success, and so like Vanderplas on Twitter is like, hey, Louisville City would never let themselves get to this point. They would have made a change. It's like, well, maybe because the owners and the people who are running the organization at Louisville have had to make those choices before, right? They have had to make some tough decisions, and Phoenix hasn't. So maybe that's the difference. And maybe there's a longer leash there because they're just not used to making that decision. They're used to being like, Shantz is the guy. He's running everything. Everything's great. We're gonna win the West or finish with the home playoff game. And so I think Phoenix ownership has some soul searching to go through and decide, what are our options, and do we just ride this out and the fans are going to be mad? They don't have maybe they wait for that Memphis where there's 11 days between games. I mean, maybe they're trying to look at the schedule and get to that point and say maybe you have a little bit of time to get somebody in. But I don't know. It's always a tough choice, right? Because then you're second guessing yourself if it doesn't work out. And so it is. I can understand an ownership group not wanting to make that change when it's a guy who's essentially coached this team since the beginning of Rising.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and this is something I kind of started thinking about fairly recently. That especially in football, right? And you see it across all sports, is that unless you are in a top contending club in a top 5 league in soccer, you're going to have to deal with having managerial turnover if you're good or you're bad. Because if you're bad, obviously you're going to sack your coach because you're not playing well. If you're a really good club, you're going to have to deal with your coaches getting poached. Same way we see, just recently, Kobe Henry's off to Ligue 1 on what seems to be $1 million contract transfer. Good teams have their best players and coaches poached. And for Phoenix, now, kind of looking back at it, it's a little bit strange that Sean Sutton never really got that call up, considering the success of Phoenix. And maybe you can boil that down to is that they spent the money, and MLS teams said, "Well, you spent the money, you can't do it on a shoestring budget, relatively, right?" Which is possible, but it's one of those things of Lou City has had so much coaching turnover, not because they've had to sack somebody, but just because they've had to, because someone got a better job. And you're going to have to deal with that in the USL. And you're going to have to deal with that in MLS. It doesn't matter if you're in the top flight of the US. If you're good enough, you're getting a coaching job somewhere else that's going to be better. That's just the state of footy. Everywhere, really, unless you're in a top 5 club in a top 5 league in Europe.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
So... But we're going to get into a whole lot of this tomorrow. I know. Go read John's breakdown of the Phoenix situation on Backheeled. He did a really good job breaking that down. There's a lot of really good stuff coming out. I think another kit season comes out this week. And I have just gotten the clearance and the okay. There will be a new away days coming in like 3 weeks. For Louisville City, actually. So we have a lot more content planned, a lot more fun stuff planned. In about 4 weeks, we're going to have Charleston Battery as well, which should be a ton of fun. So,
nice.
Yeah, I'm very pumped about that. So thank you, everybody, for watching the short show. This has been a little bit longer of a short show, but relative to the normal show, this is a pretty short show. So make sure you're here tomorrow on Tuesday, Trademark, which should be the name of the Owl Union Omaha. That was such a layup and you missed it. Come on. But thank you, everybody, so much for coming in and joining. Thank you, Alan, for hopping on this afternoon. And for the last time tonight, cue Alan's voice.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show. This and every episode is brought to you by the Beautiful Game Network. Find podcasts and other written work at bgn.fm. Once again, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you guys again next week.